Hi, everybody. Welcome to another On Purpose Connection series in celebration of Women's History Month and also International Women's Day past. I am so excited to basically bring you one of my friends, a true mompreneur. Her name is Faye Smith, and she is the founder of Sevilla Smith Handlasted Shoes, and from working in the entertainment industry for almost 20 years, dressing actors and traveling around the world, and spending most of her time on her feet with a soul that ached for wonderfully beautiful, timeless, comfortable shoes, Sevilla Smith was born. Modern shoes in primitive ways, hand-lasted shoes that are meant for loving over time. And Faye lives in Philadelphia for part of the year and Barcelona for the other part with her professor husband and their 12-year-old son. So excited to have you here, Faye. Look at you with all the shoes in the back.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, so good to have you. So I'd love to, before we dive right in and have you tell us a little bit more about yourself. As you know, this is our called the On Purpose Collective Group, and this is our On Purpose Connection series. And I love just highlighting people that are really living in their purpose, whether it's through their life or their work. And I'd love to just get a sense of, what does on purpose mean for you?
Well, I would say for me, on purpose kind of aligns itself really well with a terminology that we use a lot for our shoes, which is intentional making, intentional production, and also intentional consumption. For us, that's what on purpose means to me. You know, there's a lot of frivolity around the things that we do, getting swept up in just whatever it is. It could be trends for shoes. And on purpose for me really reflects an intentionality of what we actually want out of our lives.
I love it. I love it. And I think now more than ever, after the year that we've all had last year, it's really about being more intentional with our purchases, how we spend our time, what we do, what we give our energy to. So that's why I just love having you here. And for those of you that are watching us live, let us know that you're here, where you're joining us from. Let us know in the comment section underneath this video, you know, what are you taking away from this? If you have any questions for Faye, and lovely Misha will make sure that your comments or questions will be tracked here on Zoom, and we will be engaging you here live. So yes, I'm excited to know, because you have such an incredible story. So go ahead and, if you don't mind, sharing a little bit more about yourself and how you ended up working and living in Barcelona.
Well, for me, I worked for, almost 20 years in the film industry, and that entailed so much travel, working all over the world, always working, always traveling. And that's kind of what travel was like for me in my 20s and 30s. But by the time I had my son, I was finding I was really needing to have a home base. And so I decided that I wanted to look for something that I could kind of get the best of both worlds, which is to travel, but at the same time feel like I have a home. So one of the summers, we used to spend all our summers in Barcelona. And one of the summers, I just happened to meet someone who was willing to teach me how to make shoes. So I kind of decided that that was something I was going to pursue and start a footwear business that was built on being able to do the things that I wanted to do. Really making sure that whatever I was constructing, whatever business I was making, was going to fulfill some of the things that I already knew that I wanted out of my life. So that's how Sevilla Smith happened. So from the very beginning, it was a business and a brand that was based on traveling. The making had to happen in Europe and in the US. Also, the the ongoing themes that we talk about on our social media a lot of times has to do with travel. And what does that mean? It means versatility, it means comfort, it means all of these things, which make a lot of sense for shoes. So we kind of tied both in into each other and made sure that whatever it was, by we I mean me, whatever it was that I did was going to make sense for the life that I was looking to have.
Mm. Oh my God, it's so good. Let's just unpack that a little bit. Because you said you worked in the entertainment industry, you were dressing actors and you were traveling, and then share more about how did you come to learn how to make shoes, and which came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, was it the traveling or the working and dressing up actors that you realized, oh, there's something that you wanted to make more, yeah, just sustainable and just much more socially impact in terms of fashion? Like, love to
Mhm.
know more about that.
Well, when I worked in the film industry, it was honestly to work a 30-hour day is not
Mm,
rare. To go into
gosh.
work the full 24 hours and then some, and then rest for a little bit and go to work. So
Like
that was
that's
kind of the pace that I was used to.
mm,
And I would do these jobs and I would be in South Africa for work. I would be in Mexico. I'd be in Puerto Rico. I'd be getting ready for a trip to Antarctica, like things like this that
mm,
were, it was travel, but because it was so wrapped up in my work, I couldn't really enjoy it as much.
mm, mhm.
So I was dressing these people everywhere around the world. Sometimes, like literally for my honeymoon, they said, we need you in South Africa to dress hundreds of people. And I was like, well, I can't do it. I have my honeymoon coming up. And they're like, have your honeymoon in South Africa. We'll pay for everything. So John came with me. We went to South Africa. I worked the
Mm,
whole time. It was
mm,
great. I met so many people, but at the same time, I wasn't getting to really savor my life the way I wanted
yeah,
to.
yeah.
And Max was born, actually, I was living in Philly. Max was born in Boston because I was working on a film at that time. And he came early. So all of a sudden, I'm in the middle of a job in Boston, hundreds of miles away from home, finding myself with a baby and so far from home. And he was born early. And so we were stuck there for months at a time.
Mm,
So when I met the person who taught me how to make shoes, it was literally a grab it by the moment kind of decision. I was walking around El Borin here in Barcelona. I happened to walk into a store which had beautiful shoes, and I could tell that he had a little workshop in the back. As an American, that's not something you're used to
mhm.
seeing. I've worked
Yeah.
with craftsmen for the film industry so many times, but as a consumer, it wasn't something I was used to. And there was something really special about it.
Mhm.
And so I kind of walked out the door and I got around the corner and I'm like, what am I doing? Let me just see if he'll teach me. And I asked him to teach me, and he said yes. And so then I just kind of showed up every day for weeks on end and worked like 10 hours a day at the pace that
Wow.
I was used to with film when we'd have to
Mm,
work, and just kind of crammed all the information in and made as many shoes and made all the mistakes I needed to do before I started the business. So that was kind of the background of what brought me to where I am now. It was, I would say, a lot of um, just getting swept up in whatever was happening without
mhm.
really deciding what was going on next. So it was an easy transition to move into creating my own business. Um,
Mm,
so I don't know. I don't know if that's answering your question, but that's kind of how it came up, and in the film industry, I would work with tons of craftsmen, milliners, people who made armor, people who made fur coats, people who hand sewed beads for couture work. I worked with all of them, shoemakers, everything.
Mm.
I was never able to kind of soak up their craft and their talent the way I wanted to, because you're just trying to get product
Yeah.
out there. You have deadlines, you have actors that come last minute, you have, actors that gain in these weights, so things need to be altered and it's changes and it's problem solving constantly. You weren't really allowed to indulge in the craft that in a way that I wanted to.
Yeah, and I can totally resonate with that. Obviously not in that respect, like you're actually on set with the production, but I, as you know, I worked in entertainment as well, and we were doing the marketing for the films, and it was like, it was due yesterday, and things are changing all the time, or something happens with the actor, and then it changes the whole schedule, and then you have all the different release dates. I mean, everything is just like, it had to be done yesterday, or like weeks ago.
Everything had to be done yesterday. And you don't get to really soak in the moments. I had been to all these places and seen all these beautiful things, but at the same time, I wasn't able to soak it in the way I wanted to. And once Max was born, and he was born in the middle of a film, I remember it's like I dressed Christopher Walken, and then I walked out the door. I'm like, I think someone should take me to the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
I went to the hospital and they were like, you have to have this baby. And so when, he was like a big kind of stop sign to be like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And how are you going to enjoy your life and enjoy the things you wanted to do? So that's where the shoe brand came out of. I think if it came out of a place where I was itching to just create, to be a designer, to be expressive, I think it would be a different type of shoe. I think it would be a different type of voice. But because it was born out of all these things that I was a little bit discontent by, it really made what I was doing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that so much. I mean, obviously, I know your story and that it wasn't easy having Max prematurely and all that you went through during that time. But that the fact that you listened and kind of asked yourself, what's trying to emerge from this experience, and like stop, take a break. And like, it's not always about the work. It's like life is in session.
Life is session. And then to just kind of learn, there's a lot of like pain, grief, discontent, and everything in everyone's lives, especially right now. But to take that and learn from it, as far as making changes that are intentional to what you want, it is a big decision to make. But I think it's really important for a lot of people.
Oh my God, this is so good. How much I'm like keeping conscious of your time, because that one thing that you said about how you were traveling the world and you didn't really get to see those places. You were there in those places, working in those places, collecting a stamp in your passport, but weren't actually, I think you actually used the word indulge. And I remember when I was working for Warner Brothers, and I would see my bosses, the presidents, VPs of Warner Brothers, and they were traveling, but they just went on a plane to release a film and they came right back. They had like maybe a nice dinner, but they didn't go walk around, take a walk, a stroll, like actually take some photos. It was literally go and come back and like next thing to do. I remember thinking, you know what, do I even want to see the world like that? Or do I want to do it in a different, like you say, a more conscious and intentional way? How can I have actually that lifestyle of like being more international, but in a different way, a more purposeful, meaningful way? And I remember being on the phone with, all these different managers from around the world, because I worked in their international marketing for their movies. And, I was talking to them and I'm realizing, wow, the world's so big. It's so big. And that just really opened up my mind to like, I would love to be able to see those other parts of the world and actually see that. Because the feedback I was getting from, it seems very glamorous in Hollywood and working on the films. It's like, No, it's still
And
working,
and
working.
wardrobe is such a weird thing because, like, you know, literally 1 minute you can be in an actor's trailer dressing them for a premiere or for the Oscars that they have to get to, like doing that. And then you walk out the door and you have 800 extras that you have to dress, and you're in the middle of Africa and it needs to be like a small touristic village in Africa. Like, and so you have to dress them authentically, and you have a different, and you're dealing with people, like whether they're extras or whoever, you're dealing with local people,
Mhm.
and trying to find how to make it all authentic and in such a frantic pace.
Mhm.
So it's like your life is constantly like this, and
Constantly.
finding that, for me, before I made shoes and I had that lifestyle, it was nearly impossible to find something that made sense for, you know, a presentation that that Armani is having for us to use in a film, wear it that day, and then by the afternoon you're in the middle of a desert dressing someone as a shepherd. Like, it's you know, it's like I don't have time for
No time
shoot
to rest.
changes.
No time to rest.
Yeah,
Constantly, you're in fight or flight mode. Like your nervous system is like, it's
yeah.
like no time. Yeah.
And so,
So,
like, design from the very beginning, I kept thinking about like those two parts of my day before. So everything that I design now, it kind of has to make sense for a very versatile day. Like a
yes,
very
and let's talk more about that because I want to talk about the shoes because your shoes are amazing. So I want to hear more. Like share with everybody like your shoes. How did you come to the actual design, the style? How do you source your materials? What goes into the creation? And I know you're in your workshop now, so if you can actually speak to it
yeah.
a little bit and show and tell, we'd love to see that.
So a lot of our shoes are inspired by footwear in, you know, I would say medieval times, and maybe even earlier. But to make them in a very minimal kind of aesthetic, in a very modern aesthetic. I just think that, you know, with everything that's happened, I try to really design for something that can last at least 5 years as far as the aesthetic is. And sure enough, our best-selling shoes now are shoes that we've had for 6 years, that we designed them 6 years ago. And that for me is really important. You know, if I want to make a shoe, I want to make a shoe that I want to wear when I'm 42 years old, the same way I wanted to wear it when I was 35 years old, or whatever it is. And so it does dictate a lot of what we do. So we make shoes like that. We make them to be comfortable. We make everything to order. So we don't have a lot of shoes in our workshop because we only make them for a specific person who orders them, and then we ship them out to them. So we barely have any stock. So we barely have sales, things like that really are such characteristics of like mass production, to always come out with new product, have sales, keep pushing a sale, produce a lot so you could sell a lot. For us, we took the flip side of everything, which is produce just exactly what we need to produce. We have a waiting period that's like 2 to 4 weeks, which for some people is insane.
Because they want instant gratification, instant
Yeah.
consumption.
And then also we're making sure that we only make something once they're ordered, so we can keep our materials. You know, we can have one hide of leather that we make into 5 different styles of shoes. We don't have to commit one hide of leather to one style and one size. We just kind of, we're trying to take the flip side out of everything and being purposeful about what we make. And, I think those things are really important for us, and hopefully people are taking note of a different way of buying and a different way of production. And I do think that women are leading the way in this type of production, in this type of consumption. And I think that's really notable and important, for that we are the ones kind of thinking about those things, wanting to change those things.
That's it. It's all about the women driving the change and the culture. I love it, love it, love it. So actually, yeah, speaking to any challenges, like for you as an online business, like what were some of the things that maybe are key takeaways for someone that's watching that? And we'll get into another question as well, but for someone that maybe hasn't even started a business yet, but wants to. What were some of your key takeaways from last year in terms of how to pivot your business? I mean, it was already online to begin with, but I know that just because we're friends, that you did have to position a little bit differently, and what were the needs and wants of people when they're in lockdown. So tell us more about that.
Well, one of the things I really realized during COVID was what a strong community we had. Of course, we were always online, never had a physical store, we were never creating stock. So it was always just, so social media was a big part of our business model. And in social media, I'm very open about, personal things go on there. We're transparent about the costs of our things. We will put up pictures of when we hammer our finger, whatever. We're very personal about it. And we're personal about our struggles. And, we have a very loyal following. Maybe at least half of our weekly orders are people who have ordered from us before.
Amazing. That speaks volumes.
Yeah. So when COVID happened, and I said on social media, look, I have no idea what's happening. Footwear is not something that people look to buy when they're stuck in their house. And the community our community just kind of rallied, and like they just put in orders. They said, look, I don't know when I'm going to wear this, but I want to wear it, and I want to make sure you're here in a year's time. And a lot of businesses in the past year have gone out of business. So we were so grateful that that our community they were really there for us.
Amazing.
And on the flip side, COVID really affected what I was designing. Being stuck at home, all of a sudden we started doing kind of slippers and slip-on shoes, like things we weren't doing before. Because I realized like people were home, and then the very visceral things that people wanted, like people wanted to be touched, and they wanted to be hugged, and they wanted something. So then we started making our shearling inserts, which are kind of like, they're sheepskin inserts for your shoes. And people were just like, they'd slip them on to the shoes they already had. And they were like, oh my God. this is
so nice, so plush.
Yeah,
indulgent, just to be home with these these insults.
Comfortable for them, and it feels warm, and it feels, it really does feel like a hug. So it affected what we were doing aesthetically, as well as how we were communicating with people. Like we found a lot of customers that were like, look, I don't know what's happening with my job, but I love my shoes, and I can't buy a new pair of shoes, but we want to support you. So we would make some inserts, so they would put them into their shoes, and they would be able to wear them through longer seasons and make them more comfortable without having to spend a lot of money. So it was definitely, COVID was definitely something that affected us from top to bottom. And in very, very many good ways, actually, that made us very thoughtful.
Yeah.
Luckily, this business was also made to be flexible. It wasn't something where, okay, we produce overseas and we have to give them our orders 6 months ahead of time. And then COVID hits. For us, we were meant to be, flexible, be able to change. So we made a lot of changes. We pivoted quickly. And
I saw that. I was following you. And
yeah.
that's the thing, I think, as well, is that, like you're saying about community, like you already had that know, like, and trust factor with your followers. They knew who you were, the person behind the brand. Like you're saying, it's just not some like production factory in China. We don't know who's actually making those shoes and where are those materials being sourced from.
Yeah.
And it's so important now more than ever because there's so much noise and chatter and clutter online, especially with social media. It's like, who do you know, like, and trust? And the fact that you had that already built in, that, like you're saying, it stands the test of time, whether COVID or no COVID. And I just love that you spoke to that's so important to really be tuned into your community. And like you're saying, like you had times of like you're being vulnerable and all these other things. It's like, be real. And that the fact that you were real even before COVID hit, people already trusted you. They're like, yeah, I'm going to support,
And I
their
could tell
business.
because I knew our community, I think, pretty well. I could tell that people wanted, they wanted comfort. They wanted a little bit of joy. So then I ended up doing like a sandal design that was like one shoe was different than the other. And I was just like, I don't care. This makes me happy. I look down, I see my feet, like one like the different than the other, but it's the same color. Maybe it's a different color. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it out there. And we sold a ton of them. And we had no idea. I had no idea. I was just wanting to kind of respond to what I thought people were kind of needing in their day. It's hard to look down at your feet and see kind of mismatched shoes and not giggle a little bit, and really people obviously needed that. And so, and then we dropped the price point for that shoe because our materials are less with sandals. They also come together a little bit faster. And that also responded to what people needed. But that kind of pivot that we were able to do quickly in response to what people were feeling, it really has kept our business, afloat.
I love that. Yes, you're so tuned into your community. And yeah, like I said, even before COVID hit, you were already tuned in and they were already following you and had that know, like, and trust factor, which is so important, which leads me to my next question for women or men that may be watching. And if you are watching, go ahead and, if you have any questions for Faye, this would be now your time. Or if you're catching the replay, you can always drop your question underneath this video and we'll circle back here. But for those women that are watching, whether they're starting a new business or they're unsure about taking that leap of faith, what would you say?
I would say just do it. Barely anything is permanent, When I started this business, I was coming from a job where I made hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And the idea that was going to go away was very intimidating. But, being a freelancer for my whole life, I knew that if I did something, I could always circle back.
That's it.
Those things will be there. But it was important for me to have a life and a lifestyle that was really fulfilling. And I know work is, when people are they say like, well, don't make work that big a part of your life. But it's just like, well, what am I supposed to do all day? Like, I need purpose. I need to be doing something. And so I just made sure that work was kind of something I was very, very happy about. But I do think people need to take a chance. But also before they take a chance, they need to be very real about what kind of failure could happen. For me, I'm I'm a math kind of person. And even when I was in the film industry, I always handled the budget. So that means you're spending millions of dollars in a matter of months. So you really have to stay on top of the money situation. So for me, a lot of times people go into a business and they kind of go into it with rose-colored glasses. I will sell this shoe and I will sell it at full price, and the soles cost X and the materials cost Y. But what they don't understand is a lot of times you cannot get as much yield out of your order of materials. So it's actually Y plus 30%.
Yeah,
And then
it's
you
all those
might
other
have,
costs that you
yeah,
you
you
didn't
might
get and
have
count for.
returns that what are you going to be the kind of business that says like, no returns? Or are you just going to say, yeah, you know what, if it didn't work for you, it didn't work for you. But to be able to absorb that into cost, to be able to look at things in a really pragmatic, very realistic way, rather than just being hopeful. And if you can get those numbers down on paper, you can see what you actually need to do. And I think that makes a lot of people feel very comforted, knowing, okay, well, it's fine. This is going to be an okay risk. If you price things at a certain point. I mean, I would say that is the biggest advice that I give to a lot of other makers and a lot of small businesses that are opening up. We're seeing it now, right? A lot of these businesses in Barcelona, especially, they prepared for a fantastic summer full of tourists. They didn't prepare for no tourists. And so when you're sitting there happy and hopeful about a business you're starting, to be very realistic about the things that can happen and just put it down on paper, you know?
I love that. I love that. Put it down on paper. I always tell my clients put it down on paper. Like, stop it swirling in your head. Just do a brain dump, get organized. I have some my clients sometimes put things on Post-its, and then you can really organize, how you're going to do a project. And also lean in for support. I think that's really important as well, especially women, as we want to really have that lifestyle as we're becoming parents, and we want to be able to have it all, do it all, which we can, we totally can, but also know that we're not meant to do it alone, because we're so used to putting other people's needs and wants before our own, and being the natural caregivers that we are, that it's okay to ask for help. And it's actually, that's how it's meant to be done. So so excited to have you here. And I dropped, Misha's going to drop that underneath the comments of this video, but I put it in the description of this video, because the best place for people to follow you, you would say, is Instagram, right? At Sevilla Smith.
I would say that's the one I'm a really bad social media person also. So that's the one I'm more reliable to find, is on Instagram.
Well, you have a great feed, so I think you're your own worst critic. Beautiful feed there. So you guys can definitely go check out Faye and Sevilla Smith and their shoes. Just such incredible work that she's doing there. I have a pair myself, and they're just super comfortable. I mean, being a mom and walking around and having something like you're saying that will last, that's timeless. It's so important. And I just love what you're doing, and the purpose and intention behind your business, and how it got started, and what it means right now and going forward. It's just been such a real pleasure to have you here in the community. I see Raisa was here. She says hello. She sends a kiss. I don't know who else is here, but Misha will let us know. So just had a few more questions just to wrap it up, just being like, we're celebrating women this month. So I just wanted to ask you if you'd be willing to share one woman that has inspired you to be the woman that you are today.
I would say, I know this was something I was kind of thinking about quite a bit. And I was having a hard time finding the answer to it. I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. Like, I get so many influences from so many people.
Yeah.
And that's also one of the things that's important, I think, for people to remember is the women you admire doesn't have to be completely admirable, you know? You can take like an admirable characteristic out of one person and then out of another and out of another. There's no need for any of those people to be near perfect, just as there isn't a need for yourself to be perfect. You know, it's like I know that I fail in some areas, and I'm, you know, I have really bad ADHD. So it's like I know when I get into something, I need to move on to something else. Like I can be all over the place. So, you know, when I thought about that question, I was like, who is the woman? And I was like,
Or a few, doesn't have to be one. It could be
yeah.
alive, not alive, someone you've
I,
never met, someone you know.
You know, I guess the one person that comes to mind is that I had a great grand aunt
Mm.
who you know, she was born in the Philippines. She actually came to Barcelona for a while in the early 1900s, back when the Philippines was part of Spain, and started an independence newspaper here, an underground independent
Wow.
newspaper.
Running in your blood, the entrepreneurial spirit in the women. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and then she, you know, she was like nearly arrested for that, had to go into hiding, like all of this crazy stuff. And then, you know, she got to the Philippines, and then they finally got independence from Spain, and she started one of the first schools where you can educate women outside of the convent.
Hmm.
So, you know, education for her was really important. And then from then, like, you know, then the war started, and she helped start the Red Cross and turned her
Wow.
house into a hospital and became a nurse. Like, she was everywhere.
Everything woman, the every woman, the super
Yeah.
woman.
And
She
that for me
created.
it
Oh.
is something I kind of admire, because she wasn't really stagnant. You know, she could have rested on the fact that, like, she had started this independence newspaper. And when she died, it's like every pallbearer was like a former president. So
Wow.
it was, she was very pivotal in so many ways.
Mhm.
And I really enjoyed that. You know, I really liked that she was maybe successful in something, but she didn't feel the need to stay there.
Hmm.
She just went on and she kept doing other things that she wanted to do.
Gorgeous. Well, that sounds like one woman to me. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Your great aunt. So, so incredible. I know you have such amazing stories. So I'm going to ask you about more about more about that one later. Okay, so last and final question. What advice would you give your younger self now that you've had all these life experiences?
Um, I would say I almost don't want to give her advice, because I want her to make
Mm.
mistakes and then learn from them. You know, so I guess I would just remind her to keep learning from her mistakes. But yeah, to just keep learning. You know, I don't want to I don't want to shelter her from some mistakes that she made, because I think I learned from them, and I
Yeah,
think that they've helped me now. Um,
absolutely.
and so I would just say keep learning from your
Learning.
mistakes.
I love it. I love it. I know it's a tricky one. You're like, I don't really want to tell anything because I wouldn't be who I am today if I tell her and I change everything. Change the whole course of your life. So I love that. But yes, you can just whisper to her, keep learning. I love that. Thank you so much, Faye. It's been such a pleasure to have you here. So everyone definitely go ahead and click on that link, follow Faye and Sevilla Smith, and them walking around the world in their shoes. So, so good. And also, if you are catching the replay, go ahead and still drop your comments or questions underneath this video, and we'll make sure to circle back because Faye is here and part of our On Purpose Collective. So thank you so much, Faye, for joining us and sharing about your life on purpose and your wisdom and how you turned everything that has happened to you, the good, the seemingly bad, and just made it this incredible lifestyle on purpose, the mompreneur that you are. So inspiring.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Bye, Faye.
Bye.
Okay, everyone. So thank you for joining us, whether you are watching us live or catching the replay for another. This is our third edition of our On Purpose Connection, where we are celebrating women this month, some inspiring women that are really doing some incredible things, and they are driving culture and driving change right now during this time. So stay tuned. We have another incredible guest next week, same time, same place. I know that there has been the daylight savings in the US, so it's a different time for you. So next week it's going to be 6 p.m. Barcelona, 5 p.m. London, and what is that? Let's see, 12 p.m. No, 1 p.m. New York and 10 a.m. Los Angeles. So I will let you know who's going to be joining us. But until then, thank you so much. And I hope that you enjoyed this edition of On Purpose Connection. And do make sure to click that link and follow Faye and Sevilla Smith and see the incredible work that she's doing and check out her shoes. Super, super, really purposeful, intentional, and super comfortable and super stylish. Okay, everyone, have a beautiful rest of your week. Until then, much love, many blessings. Bye, everyone.